Hi there. Welcome to Friday. So glad it's Friday this week. So, how you doing with that full moon? Uh, with a little bit of the cranky energy that's going on out there. Um, Hope you're not taking it too personally and you're not allowing it to affect you too much. I mean, it can get in and it can be sometimes difficult to ascertain if it's your own stuff or not. And I think some of it is we are hitting some uh, darker, kind of grayer weather in the Berkshires. So sometimes that makes people feel a little bit sad. So get your vitamin D supplements there, peeps. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining. So this week, for in the blog, I resurrected an old blog I had written probably like 4 or 5 years ago. Updated it, of course, but and it was about fences. So we hear often the word boundaries, right? And I don't think they're always presented in a way that is supportive. You know, I think a lot of times people talk about boundaries and they're like, oh, you have to hold your boundaries. You have to be firm about those boundaries and you have to know where they are and everything. I agree, we need to know what our boundaries are, but most of that comes from knowing who you are, because once you have that, you're clear on what works and what doesn't work. So the something, you know, I base most of this on what the heck's going on in my life or what has happened that I find interesting. And I'm so grateful that you're joining along for my chatting. Please chime in with questions. I'd love to address the you know, whatever's going on in your life or how I can be helpful in that way. But give me some suggestions and I'm happy to run with them if I know anything about it. So you may have seen the video I did about the turkeys, which is still making me laugh. So there's proof I can get quite a bit out of one experience. But now the blog about the boundaries was already planning, it was already up and ready to go out when I had an experience where someone accused me of being something that I'm not, and I asked other people to make sure that I wasn't that type of person, even though I was pretty sure I wasn't. Dishonesty is basically what it was based on. And I let it get to my head. I'll be very honest. I let that get in and poke at me and make me question who I believe myself to be and how I live. I believe I live my life in integrity. I'm not perfect, no one is, but I do the best I possibly can. And I let it get in. So when I was preparing for this week and I see the blog that's going to go out, I thought, man, this universe rocks. Like the timing of things that happen. And I think we can always revisit the subject of, do you have healthy relationships and do you have healthy boundaries in your life? And I think of boundaries as something that is self-care. So once you've established what works for you, like one of my friends would love to have people over every weekend, staying at her house all the time, really loves that, where I'm like, no, I need some quiet time. I need some no other being time to reboot. And that's just a difference in our energies, right? So I know where that is in place for me so that I can be the best service I can be the rest of the time. And she knows for herself what that is. And it's just got a different measurement, right? Because we're all uniquely different, thankfully. So with this idea of the boundaries, I always use the example of a picket fence, because I don't know if you know of anyone. Yes, I have notes this week because I'm also really tired this week and can't get myself together. So you'll hear the papers flipping. Happens. So with the idea of boundaries, you meet people who they're like, oh, firm boundaries, and they're practically a brick wall. you couldn't power through no matter what tools you have. And then you have people who don't have any. It's just a free for all. You can walk over them, through them, on them, push them around. Not that you should, but you could, because they haven't established any sense of what works for them and what doesn't work for them. I use the example of a picket fence because I think that's a sweet image. And I also like the fact that I could be talking to you and I could be holding a sense of respecting my own space. Hey, ladies, thanks for joining. And yet there's still this physical example between us of, I guess, my personal property lines and your personal property lines. Now that may come up because somebody asks you to maybe volunteer for a board and doing exactly what you do for a paid gig, and they're not just looking for consultation or a little input, they're looking for you to actually do the work. And you would have to have some, if you want to stay in business, you would have to have some kind of line there where you say, I'm happy to help, but I can't fulfill this position and give it away for free and still pay my mortgage. So that could be an example like of a business boundary, while still being connective and participatory, but holding respect for self. Boundaries can be difficult with those that we live with, family members that we grew up with, because there's a certain training that's happened there. But again, I think if you build your cute little fence, spoke by spoke, picket by picket, you'll know what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And there's always that cute little door that you can open up and change your mind. And you may decide, no, this is really okay. I do want to help in this circumstance. So in this week, when I was allowing other people's perceptions of me, and that's where the turkeys came in, because I decided I was allowing turkeys to infiltrate my brain and take up space in there and somewhat mold what I think of myself. And I left my gate open. So swoosh out the turkeys, wish them on their way, and then go back to knowing like what works for me and what doesn't work for me. So each picket that you put in, it may be how much time you're giving to a relationship, how much energy you're giving to a subject matter, a situation. Are you replaying things over and over in your head? Now, you may have had a boundary where you were able to say no to someone, but it's still renting room in your head and not paying you anything. That means that your boundaries maybe just need a little maintenance. Maybe need you to go through and say, okay, well, good for me. I was able to say no, thank you, because if you say thank you, it's just nice. And then I fell into the space where I replayed it in my head over and over and over again. Maybe I need to look at that and see why I'm doing that. So that would be like a type of maintenance that happens. And then if you're in any kind of it's any department of being human, but especially if you own your own business, it can be difficult to know where those lines are, because a lot of us are our businesses, right? So it can seem like poor customer service if we're not constantly available. And it took me quite a few years, and I'm still working on it. I have not perfected this by any means, to be able to say to people, it just doesn't work for me right now. You can text me at 8 o'clock at night. You can Facebook message, Instagram, Twitter, all those places that you can get a hold of me, email. But that doesn't mean that I have to answer you at those times. And sometimes I have to put the electronics away to not do that, because that part of my fence, boy, still needs some work. So, which is why I have the amazing Tracy, because more and more she becomes the contact. Right? So sometimes the boundaries that we have in place are supportive people around us to remind us that you're not in your best service either if you're resenting the fact that you're answering a text, but you're the one answering it. So there's this whole thing that goes along, and I'm wondering in your own life if you're seeing places where you either need to create an idea in your head first of what does that space look like? Like, how do you create a respectful, it is a distance between your energy and between maybe what is being asked of you and what are you participating in. One of the great ways to practice this is when someone wants to talk about someone else in a gossipy or negative fashion. If it's not about helpful or trying to work out a situation, then a great place to practice a boundary there would be, I can hear that you need to vent about this, but I'm really not going to talk about the person because that doesn't feel good to me. And it takes practice, and this gossipy world and technology, we tend to, well, not we, I'm not going to put myself in that place. Some people think that because they have access to you, they they can take the steamroller and just knock down your picket fence because you don't get any privacy because everything's out there. So one of the things that I see each person that I'm working with, when they create their idea, if they need to work on this, but when they create their idea of what their sacred space looks like, because that's what we're actually creating here, is a sacred space for yourself. And being able to say, once I fill up, I'll have stuff to give other people, but if people are always banging down your fence, you're not going to have energy to supply anyone. So one of the things we look at is what's important to you. It doesn't, like, I think helping people move is fun. So that doesn't mean I'm going to do it every weekend in case you guys got plans, but I think it's fun. So a lot of the times I'll offer to help because I love that excitement of new stuff, right? So if you're putting yourself out there and you understand what lights you up, and then you can be of service when a request comes in, or if someone's kind of pushing on you, you know how to respond. And it would help if you have some kind of no thank you already figured out in your head, because otherwise we could just get backed into the corner, right? And we maybe agree to things that we didn't necessarily want to do because we didn't know how to say no thank you. So all of that stuff helps, like you practice an elevator speech when you're going to do a presentation, or you're going for an interview. Well, I think we should practice these other things, because I don't know about you, but I did not get that training. And that led to many years of just over-serving and exhausting myself. So it feels good to serve. You just don't want to feel like you're allowing people to take advantage of you, because we have to allow them. Remember that? Personal accountability. So what do your boundaries look like? Do you have any? Do you know what's a no-go for you? Maybe if you don't know what is malleable, like what you could change on, maybe you need to look at what's a complete no-go for you. I'm trying to think of one for myself, but I don't think I have a hard and fast rule on that, other than I would not participate in any conversation that was derogatory towards another. I just won't. So that's a firm no-go on my part. So in this fall season, if you started to assess that for yourself, and this could be with clients, it could be with coworkers, it could be with yourself. Like, are you really, really tough on yourself? Do you really have a lot of chatter going on in there? Maybe you need to set up a cute little fence It could be that grapevine fence. That's pretty cool too. Or, some, what is that stuff? The snow fencing kind of that will move with the wind and stuff. You can have something that's flexible, because being flexible is also good too. So if you look at where you're not willing to participate, it's so much easier if a situation happens to extricate yourself from that. And we really do teach people how to treat us. So if you're someone who's been placating and people pleasing and allowing people to not even consider your opinion or your perception, and they just volunteer you for things, or assume you're going to show up in some fashion for them, you've taught them that. Own that. Take responsibility for it, and then start shifting slowly. Like with me, if I was trying to shift a behavioral pattern, I would ask my closest friends to, if they see me acting in that way, to call me on it. Maybe have a fun code word so that it's not a, hey, you're doing that thing, but it's more like, elephant with pink slippers, something along those lines. That would be a code phrase, but it would be fun. So look this week, and we're heading into the holidays. So for some of you, that may mean there's more interaction with family and there's more opportunity to practice this. Look how that all works together. Isn't that amazing how that happens? So, but look at it, because with awareness, with what matters to you, and what you know about yourself, you can decide what lines up and what doesn't line up for you. You can always change your mind. So maybe do the survey thing, they get the little camera out and they do the property lines. Maybe do that for the next week or so, then assess what works for you and what doesn't work for you. If you are still raising adult children, please put a fence in. Put a fence in, because unless they need the support, unless there's a viable reason there that they need support, you guys need to stop doing that. I have seen a week-long parade of parents whose kids are in their late 20s, early 30s, and they are still paving the way for them. And I'm like, and we wonder why they're not flying on their own. How are they going to build up that wing strength if they never practice? So that would be a great place to start if any of you fall into that category. And I'm not saying don't help and don't be there for them. I don't want the emails about being a bad parent, but my rule is, if you're old enough to procreate, I'm done taking care of you. So, and that's how you get independent adults. So this would be a great place to practice that boundary. It doesn't have to be difficult. You do not need to change these things overnight. Anything that's suggested, if it doesn't resonate, throw it out. But I so appreciate you popping by. Send me some areas of life that you might bump up against. I don't have to mention your name. If you just want to send the subject matter, then I can make it more relevant to what's going on in your world. And I'm happy to do that. I would like this to be an exchange of energy and communication back and forth. And I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Don't get blown away if you're on the East Coast. It sounds like the winds are going to be pretty impressive this weekend. Winds of change blowing things around. And have fun out there, all right? Because we really should be having some fun. So take care. Happy October 26th.